lot here. This is a project that's still being finalized, so there's still more details to be worked on. This will put this into place. The next step then is to go through staff. We'll get more details on the building and where the utilities will be going in, but that's normally done through the staff. This allows the zoning and the setback issues, so happy to stand for any questions. I will point out too, parking. This part of the UND district, we're really folding that into the UND parking system. There's lots of parking out there, maybe not directly on this lot, but we're saying that we'll fold that into the parking system and call that good. So happy to stand for any questions. And again, this is a 2-meeting deal, so.
Okay, you want to put them back up so I can see them?
Sure.
Thanks, Ryan. Anybody, no public hearing on this one. This is preliminary approval. Anyone have any questions? Mr. Reichert?
Yeah, is that that building that's on there, I assume that's the old field house, that's not the new proposed building?
Okay, let me pull that back up again just so we can talk through that. What's that?
The footprint you were saying that was on there?
So footprint is actually gone, Alex, out of this. So this will be the new footprint. It's in the similar location to the old, but it is a brand new footprint. So it'll come around here. There'll actually be a tunnel that'll actually come over and then link up with the high performance center that's over in this area here, because on the bottom floor there'll be UND offices, and so they're going to have a connection. The upper floors are going to be market rate apartments.
I missed the first part of what you said, but my big concern is that it looks like the easement that we're talking about goes through the corner of that building, and that's why I was wondering if it's the old field house or the new building.
No, that's why on that last one I had mentioned that I think in the future we're going to have a vacation coming, so that'll be coming over on the future. So yeah, that's a good catch, but that is what we were referring to before on that last item. Can you not hear me?
No, I can.
Okay. We're going to have a vacation coming on the future because that building does sit over that easement, not over the utility line per se, but it is over the easement, so we're going to be vacating that in the future.
Are we just waiting to see what the final site plan looks like, or what are we?
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you'll be seeing a vacation next meeting cycle.
For the whole thing or just a piece of it?
A portion of it, yep. We're going to be moving that line, and I can certainly share that with you, but right now we're looking at this, the line comes underneath the railroad, and they're looking to move it generally in this direction here. Right now it kind of it makes a shortest route in between there is where it was before all this was really envisioned. So we're going to be moving that just to get it out of the way, and also there were some other reasons to move that line and get it out of there and get a new line in there. It's a pretty important line that comes through there, and Mr. Grasser can certainly fill in some more as well.
Mr. Grasser, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Ryan, I think you caught most of it there at the end, but there is a sanitary sewer force main that runs kitty corner through that lot, almost right on that easement line. It does appear to be in conflict with the new building, and we are moving forward on I don't want to call it an emergency, but it's a rapid pace here to relocate that sanitary sewer force main ahead of the main building construction. We'll be taking bids on that here in a couple of weeks. We will be rerouting then that line essentially around the two outside perimeters of that lot, the southerly lot line, and then go up the westerly lot line. And there is going to be an additional easement that's going to come with that to allow that. That'll allow, in turn, then allow later on that the existing utility to potentially be vacated.
Thank you, Mr. Grasser. Mr. Kuhn?
Any questions?
Just a quick here, Alex referred to the field house. This is actually the Memorial Stadium, right?
That's correct, yeah. It's the original Memorial Stadium. That's correct.
I'm going to defer that to Ryan, what the correct terminology is.
Yes, it's the Memorial Stadium site. I'm not sure they're
The
here.
Memorial Stadium project is the way we have it
Yes.
in our books.
It has really nothing to do with the field house.
Which would be the Hislop, or you?
I'm going to stay out of that argument.
Memorial Stadium.
Field house would be on the west side of the Columbia Road.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, Ryan, you said there's a 50-foot setback from Columbia Road. Can there be parking in there like there is now?
That's correct. It's a 50-foot building setback only. And not parking. So you could park within that area. Are you guys picking me up?
Brian, if you're talking and if you can hear us, we're not hearing you.
Do you guys hear me? That would answer the question.
Nope. Can you hear me yet? Okay, so yes, that is a 50-foot building setback, and you can park within that.
You again.
Nothing? Anybody? I see a lot of head shaking, they're not hearing us.
No, now we can hear you.
Okay? It's a 50-foot setback that you can park in, Alex, to answer your question,
Building setback.
Okay,
but you can park in it.
okay, good, thanks.
Okay? Any further questions?
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Kuhn. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? All right, motion 4-1 passes. 4-2.
4-2, ordinance to amend zoning map to include UND Wilkerson P3 Housing PUD, unplatted parts, Grass Works Township, 3500 block of University Avenue.
Mr. Brooks?
Well, I'll pull this up and hopefully everybody can still hear me. Oh, locked it up. Can everybody see that? Okay, great. And apparently you can hear me too, so that's 2 for 2. Okay, so this is the Wilkerson area. So here's Wilkerson, here's Stanford Road as it comes down through campus. Here's University Avenue. Wilkerson's here. You have West, McVeigh, Brandon, Selke, Noren. This is the area that UND is looking to do all of their freshman housing in the future. As part of that, they're going to redo these northern dorms, and then they're going to tear down the 2 existing, I think it's McVeigh and West, that are roughly a location here, and they're looking to put up 2 new ones, and they're going to push those closer to the roadway and kind of define their area and end up with kind of an open space here in the middle. As part of that too, they're going to redo some of their tunnels. As most people know, the tunnel system is, I think it's half in the ground, half out, and they're looking to maybe make the outdoor space is a little bit more usable and functional, perhaps for doing events, those types of things in the quad area. So it'll become a little bit better use for the residents that are going to be in those dorms. And at the same token, they'll kind of encompass it too and screen it with all the buildings to kind of keep all that the use that's in there a little bit closer to within that area. So with that, that's kind of the setup. I'll go through again. It's a lot of the same pieces, but in terms of the impervious lot coverage, They're going to go up to 65% in this area. And again, this area is part of a larger course in this area here along the eastern edge. That's Cooley. It's a lot of open space. And I'm seeing my mic, I think, cut out again, so, and back on. Thanks, Alex. So the Cooley space is here. It's got a lot of green space, and that'll continue. But in terms of this lot proper, that's going to be a 65 max. Front yard off of University, we're going to a 15-foot setback, so that's going to be a little bit closer, but that's really looking to define that edge of the roadway. And of course, these are rather large berms as well, so we think that's still going to work. And Wilkerson's kind of pushed out that far as well with some of their areas, so we still think it makes sense. It's in line with that. And the second front, they are going to go a lot closer to Stanford Road, which really operates like a campus road, and they're going to be 5 foot back on that. So those are kind of the pieces that'll be a little bit different. And with that, I'll kind of open it up and entertain any questions. I'll take down I'll stop sharing, and then can always pull it back up as questions come.
Mr. Reichert?
Yeah, and I have no problem hearing you, Steve, but Ryan, you really cut out bad. The only question I have is, how is the visibility on that corner where West is right in there between University and Sanford? I assume that it's okay, but it looks like it's really tight.
That's a good point here. Let me, hopefully you guys can still hear me, but I'm going to pull up a GIS here and share it out for you to hopefully see. And so here's where we're at with that Stanford area. So you can see that there's very wide berms here in terms of how much room they have to work with. So we are looking at that visibility, but in terms of on this corner here, there's still going to be setback, was it 15 foot from University and 5 foot back here. There's, and of course, we want the roadway, we want the slower speeds anyway, but there's still plenty of room and good visibility there, Alex. But that's a good question that we are making sure is still going to be had. So has a lot to do with the bigger berms there.
I'd move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert. Could you put them all up again?
Yep.
So I don't want to miss somebody. Moved by Mr. Reichert.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Kuhn. Any further discussions? Seeing nothing, call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4-2 passes. 4-3.
4-3, ordinance to amend the zoning map to include UND Princeton, P3 Housing PUD, unplatted parts, Grand Forks Township, 400 block of Princeton Street.
Mr. Brooks.
Okay, it looked like I had better luck using the GIS. I don't know if that, but I'll just move. This is going to be over to the east. Here's Princeton, and here's University Avenue. And as I pull back out here a little bit, this is, we redid that Oxford Street, as you remember, a year or so ago. And if you haven't had a chance to go onto campus, it looks significantly different, and there's a lot of improvements being made, but this Oxford Street was one of them. Of course, the streetscape along University Avenue was another, and this, everything that we're talking about on that last one, and then the stuff here to come is other improvements that University's making, so I think they're all good and heading in the right direction, but the zoning that's going to be coming through here is going to be in this area here. Again, they're looking to update dorms. For those who don't know, I think it's Walsh up here. Look at my notes. Squires Beck. Walsh, Squires, Beck, I think that's in this area here, and this is where some of these improvements are coming. Again, I'll pull up I'll stop sharing that screen and pop up the individual PUD here. So here's the area that they're looking to take out Hancock Hall and do this new yellow footprint that you're seeing here. So these are where some of those improvements are coming, and this is going to be, as I understood it, this wouldn't be freshman housing, it'd be a little bit more upper class. But again, 65% impervious lot coverage, front yard off of University, they're going to go 25 foot back. You can kind of see where the sorority here, they're roughly similar to that setback over on that side. Second front on Princeton, I think they were going 15 foot, so a little bit closer there. So with that, again, with the area and even where they're already at with Squires, that setback made sense. So with that, that kind of is a quick preview, and again, you see where the new Oxford Street goes. So I'll stand for any questions and stop sharing and can pull back up if need be.
Mr. Reichert.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Kuhn. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4-3 passes. 4-4.
4-4, ordinance to amend the zoning map to include Christus Rex PUD, Lot 2 and 3, Block 11, University Place Edition, located at 3024 and 3012 University Avenue.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Just working on sharing notice the screen here.
You're operating it like a surgeon.
That's not exactly my forte. So this is going to be a little discussion about some history. It's Harvard Street and University. And I can't remember when it happened, but way back when, Christus Rex, which is located at this area here, the quadrant of Harvard and University, they set up a coffee house there. Today it's called Archives, and through the history, it started as just a coffee house, which was kind of accessory to the church there. It was a place for students to go hang out, they could study, do those types of things. The owner's here, he can probably give you some more information on history, perhaps even on it, but current zoning is UD, which doesn't allow commercial. But it was accessory to the church. I think the city at that time, yeah, that makes sense. Place for students to study. It's similar to the Union, and kind of as it grew and it's been very successful, at some point it really became a commercial use. And so now we're looking at, well, we need to fix the zoning. So the individual is looking to do potential for liquor license, which will go through city council to do. But one of the questions is the zoning appropriate, obviously? And we really need to look and say, well, no, the UD is just an extension of a residential district. And so that doesn't really work there. So the zoning, I don't think anybody's going to say that Archives doesn't fit in that area. And so with that, we were looking at putting this PUD in place to allow the coffee shop to remain. I think it just makes sense. That's the part that we're dealing with today. He's got a good business. He's doing breakfast, lunch. I mean, students use that pretty constant. He's, this was kind of driven by his thought to do an add-on, that he'll have to go through and have that discussion with city council in the future. But in this case, we're just trying to get the zoning right and allow that coffee house to get into a proper zoning. And with that, this is preliminary. Next time we do public hearings where we notify neighbors, and that'll be next meeting. But with that, I know the owner is in attendance, and I'll stand back if you guys have any questions for me, and be happy to answer any of them before.
Mr. Reichert.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I missed it, but I couldn't see the PUD in the packet. What is this liquor store that, serving liquor? It's one thing to, what are we actually allowing here? I'm fine with allowing a coffee shop here, but if we're going to allow a bar here, I think we might want to talk about it a little more.
Yeah, what we're proposing is there isn't a traditional PUD map. We're going with the micro PUD on this one, Alex.
Okay.
And so what we put through, if you look at that Christus Rex PUD, it's on the, I think it's right after the staff report. The uses allowed, university district uses plus coffee restaurant use. So in this case, it wouldn't be a bar that he'd be going after, which is your typical Class 1 license. What he's looking for, I think, is just something that would allow beer and wine for students who are maybe going to want a beer and wine while they study or, you know, sit there and those types of things. So I think that's ultimately his goal, and we'd fit that under the restaurant use just like we would, you know, an Applebee's or something like that. So that was, in terms of uses, we don't have any uses where we say specifically alcohol is allowed, maybe with this restaurant or not. But in this case, that's how we're dealing with it on the PUD. It's just for that lot, for that building, it's a micro PUD, and we'd be allowing the UD district uses plus the restaurants.
Has the university chimed in on this at all? I mean, it is a dry campus, so to slap a liquor right in the middle of it seems a little odd.
I think they are aware of the request. The owner could maybe talk about that, but I think they are aware of the request. The university is aware of the request. Hopefully you guys heard that, but I'll let the owner, who hopefully has better...
Well, we'll see. Is the liquor the only reason that we need to clean this up right now and make it, rezone it to the restaurant type zoning?
It's the driving factor, but it is something that needed to be cleaned up from a zoning standpoint, because I would definitely say are a operating business within that district.
Because, yeah, it's been this.
Yeah, but there's a huge difference between a coffee shop and a...
Now, that being said, if we were to deny this, I'm not going to shut them down, if that makes sense, but...
No, I think I've missed half of this. Is there, can you use a different microphone? I feel like this is important to get all this information, and I'm just not able to hear it.
Well, let me sit down and see if that works. Can you hear me?
Steve's microphone seems to be working fine. I don't know if you, or one of the council members' microphones, but yours is not working at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yep.
So I'm sitting down at the chair. So the university is aware of the request, but the other point I wanted to make was, if this, for whatever reason, was denied, I'm not looking to shut that coffee house down. So just so you're aware of that, I mean, I do think it needs to be cleaned up, but I don't think we'd go to the point of shutting it down if for whatever reason this request did not go through.
No, and my question was not meant to say that I want to shut it down, but I think we always have to be careful about zoning creep. You know, we approve some zoning, and then somebody comes along and sort of slides in some other use, and then comes back and says, well, this is the use. Why don't you, make it legitimate for me? Which I can deal with. We can have that discussion, but now I'm very concerned if we're going to completely change the character of this area with a full-blown restaurant, privately owned liquor, and I don't even know that I'm against it. I just need to have a little bit more information, I think.
That would be a good point, where the owner could come up and actually say what he was interested in doing, and find out if we could limit the use to that, if there's some comfort level with some different wording than potentially on the PUD.
Mr. Matichak. Just a point of interest here. Wouldn't the PUD basically prevent what Alex is worried about?
How do you mean?
Well,
you mean in terms of the uses?
everything would be restricted to that PUD, so it's not just like somebody else could come in and say, well, he's got this zoning over here, I can do that. This would be tied to that PUD, right?
Yeah, it'd be tied to that specific geography, so those two highlighted squares on the staff report.
So it's not like you're giving a zoning change here, you're just allowing this in that PUD.
just within that geography, those 2 blocks.
And the
block.
alcohol part of it is not our decision anyway.
That's correct, that is,
So, to me, you know, this is something we'd want to do to preserve that business.
that's the way we looked at it, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
That's, yeah.
I just want to point that out.
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Matichak. Any other discussions?
I'll move approval.
Mr.
Preliminary approval.
Mr. Matichak moves approval.
Second.
Second by Ms. Sandy. Any further discussions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 4-4 passes not unanimously. 4-5.
4-5, ordinance to amend Chapter 18 Land Development Code B3 General Business District Zone to allow large animal clinics as a conditional use.
Ms. Halford, and she is going to sit at her chair to try to, so we can hear you.
I'm not going to press my luck. Brian wasn't having very good luck, so I'll just stay here. Good evening again. So recently we were approached by a business requesting he would like to start treating large animals in their facility. So currently there's not a facility in the area that can take large animals if they need hospital care. So the department looked into other cities around in our area, what they're doing to handle such a business. As you read in the regional city comparison memo, which was one of the attachments in the staff report, it kind of goes over a few what other cities are doing. It's a little bit of this and that, or some of them are not doing anything at all. So the planning department feels the best route to go with this is a conditional use permit. Going this route gives staff and commission the opportunity to review each request, to look at the operation and if it's a right fit for the area, as well as their business plan, as well as we can look at the CUP every now and again if we need to, or if a complaint comes aboard. So staff is recommending approval. I can definitely answer any questions that you might have. That was really quick.
Did everybody hear everything okay?
I should have.
Yes.
Okay, good.
No, I just covering the bases here. Any questions for Ms. Halford? We got to pick on her a little. Mr. Budke?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. I agree with the conditional use approach here. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm a little curious about what exactly is a large animal, if that's like worth defining, or I don't know, maybe if you could just speak to that. And then my second question is, you know, zoonotic disease has been in the news lately, so I'm kind of curious if, I wouldn't expect to see this in the zoning code, but are there like rules that govern a facility like this as far as like infection control and like what animals are can be together treated in the same space?
So the definition part, large animals, we're looking at like horses and cows, larger than a large dog. There's not anything like that in this area, so it would be treating animals of that size. With infection diseases, that's more of the health department. I really can't answer that. I'm sure there's some regulations on that they would need to follow.
Mr. Eichert?
Yeah, so somebody who grew up in Dickinson where we had Stockman livestock right on the east end of town. I would certainly want to limit this to no boarding or no, you know, they had mentioned something in the staff report about that they wouldn't be boarding any people. I think we need to make that very clear, because there's a difference between bringing a horse in and keeping, you know, large animals around for any length of time. The stench becomes pretty unbearable pretty quick.
Yep, well that's what's nice about the conditional use permit. We'll be able to look at that and see if it fits the area and what they're thinking of using their facility for to treat those animals. If it's just the day or if they're looking at boarding. But I know the applicant that is interested in it wasn't originally looking at boarding. And he is here if he needs to answer any questions too, he's available.
Mr. Johnson?
Just with the boarding, would that not allow for overnight care of an animal? So say a horse needs to come in and it needs to stay overnight. I don't know what they do to the horses to make them stay overnight, but is that allowed?
And this would, no.
It would not be allowed?
Well, I mean,
If it was like an emergency case where, say, it's got a broken leg and they have to stay overnight one night, are we going to allow that, or is that considered boarding?
that would be considered boarding.
Okay.
It would be considered boarding, but we typically don't have zoning officials looking. If there's a weird case,
Yeah.
we could certainly write that in if need be, under the conditional piece, I think.
Mr. Reichert?
I'm going to move approval, but at final, I'm going to want to see a more, I'm going to want to see a definition that clearly excludes that problem, because that could be a real significant issue.
Of the boarding problem?
Yeah, I mean, just whether there's a limitation on how many animals can be there at once, or how many animals can be there at what period of time, or something. I'm perfectly fine with the idea of this. I just think that we need more meat on the bones here for terrible
Okay.
reference.
Yep, we can do that.
Ms. Sandy?
Is this where they are currently located, and are they already set up for large animals, or is this an investment that they're making? Because what I'm concerned about is eventually they're going to want to board these animals, or there will be an issue with the conditional use permit, just because it is kind of somewhat unusual to have this.
Just because we start with one little dog park and then we end up with dog daycare.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to point out is, right now, large animals inside city, there is no zoning that they can go. And so all we're doing here is, we're just setting it up so that somebody could request a conditional use permit. From here, the next step is they would have to actually apply for a conditional use, where we could put all of those conditions, depending on the site, on that actual permit. So we could say operating hours, we could put it, depending on where it is, we can evaluate to make sure that, trailers can get in and out of there easily. And we can also say, if it's in a B3 that we don't think is appropriate, next to, say it's close to residential, the particular request that's coming before us isn't, but if there was another B3 that somebody wanted to, but we just didn't think it made sense there, you could do that as well. So I just wanted to make those points as well. This is just making it as an ability to apply for a conditional use permit, which is then goes through another scrutiny through this body and the city council.
Ryan, can you remind me, does this go, are the neighbors notified for conditional use?
They are, yep, that's correct.
I just think we're opening up a little can of worms with this. I'm thinking of offloading, onloading animals and stuff, and depending where it's at, like you said, I'm struggling. Mr. Matichak?
I'm just making a second so we can continue this discussion, because you have a motion, right, by Alex?
Yep.
Okay, second.
Thank you.
I just want to say a few things. Dr. Young is here. He probably knows more about large animals than I do, but I've been around a few animals that have been sick, to a situation with a horse that ate a poisonous plant that had to have 3 veterinarians 24 hours a day for 48 hours keep that horse up and walking so it wouldn't go down, because if it went down it would not be alive. So there's situations where it's not boarding. I wouldn't call it boarding. It's saving the animal's life or working with what you have. I understand what he wants to do, but I think you need to reconsider just a little bit. If you have a serious enough incident, you may have to keep an animal overnight. And I don't call that boarding. I call it care. And I think there's a difference. Boarding is somebody that says, okay, can you take care of my horse? I'm going to go to the lake. No, we're not going to do that. But, so I just want to bring that up so that everybody doesn't say, well, you can't keep anything overnight. I think the animal is the one that we have to be concerned the most about, and if the care requires it, then that's what should be done. You know, maybe the horse will come in, you can't get it back on the trailer. You know, the leg's broken or whatever, what you gotta do. So I don't know how far you're gonna go, Dr. Youngs, but, you know, that's one, you know, I don't want to make that a sticking point, that it's boarding when it's really the care of the animal. That's my only point.
Mr. Reichert?
Yeah, and my problem here is, I mean, philosophically, I think B3 is the absolute wrong area to be putting this in. I don't think that that's right. I think that the location that All Pets has out there is just fine for what they're talking about, but in general, I have real concerns with putting this into B3. To Frank's point, yeah, I mean, that those things are going to happen, and you're right, but we have to plan ahead for those. But this should be more in an I or a agricultural area. I mean, if we're going to decide that you want to have your large animal clinic in a B3, you've completely changed the nature of the B3. And that's where, to Frank's point, is exactly what I'm concerned about. And I have no problem with it being where it is, but I'm afraid of what we're going to create if we put this into a B3 conditional use.
I agree.
You know, the only thing we did evaluate, and Dawson, who put together the memo, the intern for us, who's back over there now, I will say we did look at other cities. You know, it's conditional. There are some that where use is permitted. You know, then maybe you look at industrial. Well, then that's, you know, we have very little say in it. I just want to point out that the level of scrutiny that does involve where, as Alex said, not all B3s make sense, but this B3 did make sense. That's where that conditional use allows you that additional piece to go through. So that we did struggle with that as staff, but I will point out that that's one of the reasons that in this case B3 under a conditional only makes sense. If this is approved, and of course this is first reading, and if it is approved, then they have to come in and make a request for a conditional use permit where we talk about the individual site and the conditions that we'd want to put in on it.
Right, and my only point, I mean, we need more than 3 words. You know, right now we've got large animal clinic. We need more than that to define what we're talking about, so that everybody's comfortable with what we have here, I think.
Okay, I understand. We can look at putting in some specific conditions, and then those could always be added on. So we can look at that. I think I understand what you're saying. Thanks.
Mr. Matichak?
Just one other quick thing, not to support this or not, but right now for large animals, the closest thing you got is Edinburgh, Park River, Castleton, and Fargo. You don't have anything else around here. And
right, but Frank, what would stop this vet from having a Quonset a mile out of town that he uses for that sort of thing?
Nothing. And
I mean, there's no reason to have it. I mean, we've got land upon land upon land. I mean, I don't disagree that this is...
Dr. Young will tell you that most of us, we require him to come to our facility because we have a facility that can handle all these things and do these things. But there are certain cases where it doesn't work that way. But I agree with you. He should probably have a corral out in the country someplace with a building. But for right now, like I said, there is no large animal service anywhere in the area. It's a lot of miles away.
And again, that's just a good thing to bring a business closer to town, but in town, I don't know. I'm kind of with Alex on this one. It's tough to justify to blanket it over and saying, yeah, put it on a B3 and the conditional, and I think we're setting ourselves up for more fun in the future, whatever you want to say. But if there's any further discussion, there's a motion and a second.
He has to come back in and get a conditional use permit.
I get that.
Facilities, right?
Yep, we're just opening this up to allow a conditional use permit for...
You know, I think preliminary approval should go along, and then if we run out of other things, we'll have to handle it.
Yeah, and that's up to the commission to decide too.
Because we'll see this again, and then whoever wants this use permit will have to come in a third time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have a preliminary conditional use, then you'll have you'll get
Conditional is
that
just
one time.
once, but this reading to change ordinance is twice.
It's twice. So
Yeah.
we'll see this next month, and if we approve it next month, then we could see a conditional.
Then you see the application for a conditional use permit for a specific site,
Okay.
if somebody makes one.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. Good conversation, everybody. No more discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, preliminary motion is passed. Item 5, reports from planning department.
Thank you. I was just going to mention, again, legislative still going on. We've had crossover. Non-conforming structures is still out there. There's a couple other ET bills as well. One of them which would allow some of them to vote. So the city is still providing comment on those. So,
Yeah, we're watching that close.
Non-conforming structures.
so there's a non-conforming structures bill that's in place right now that would allow if a residential structure burned, was whatever, they'd be able to rebuild and just as is. So whether or not the law met our minimums today, whether or not that use was allowed, it would still be able to. So if it
So if it was grandfathered into an area that was zoned something else next to it, like on 42nd there or whatever,
yeah,
they would be allowed to rebuild, where now our code would say, no, you can't do that.
yep, that's correct. So even if a duplex burned in the university neighborhood where we rezoned that from R2 back to R1, they could rebuild the duplex, even though we've now said only single families are allowed.
So it's kind of like keeping the grandfather in.
Yeah, whereas before, if it was destroyed by more than 50%, then we could get it up to code.
What I didn't want is for somebody to build a non-conforming building in an area where it couldn't be built to start with. You know,
Yeah, at some point, yes, I think I see what you're saying, so.
I didn't say that.
City still has concerns, but, yeah, that's where it's sitting today, so.
I didn't want people just to be allowed to build any kind of building they wanted, wherever they wanted to. And it would be non-conforming and it'd be okay.
Yeah, it would be a new structure, but it would have been,
Probably
in this,
existing structure.
at some point, it would have been in the past, yeah. Happy to answer any others, or you can contact me after too.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Any other business? Seeing none? Call for a motion to adjourn. Motion. Ms. Sandy, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion accepted, meeting adjourned. Yes, sir.